Hello everyone, I'm OP Tank, bringing you another Neverwinter video, and today we're going to be covering over an Oathbound Paladin tank build. Just so you know, this build is not set in stone, and everyone plays a Paladin slightly differently, so this is just a general overview. Make sure you test things out and see what really works for you. Hopefully this video will help you. This will be a bit of a long video, so I will include times down in the description video so you can jump ahead to the portions that you like to see. So that being said, we're going to start off right away, and we're going to start by covering race. So for race, you got three really decent options. Of course, the best one will be the Ancestry Dragonborn. That will give you a +2 to any 2 stats, which is very nice. Also gives you power and crit strike increase by 3%, and it gives you 3% more healing. You'll receive 3% more healing, and it'll give you 3% more hit points. So all in all, an excellent choice for a race. Your other options are Dragonborn, which is similar to the Ancestry one, which it gives you +2 to any 2 stats. Your power and crit strike are increased by 3%, but you only get 5% more healing, and you don't get the increase in HP for that one. The other choice, which is the free option that everyone will have access to, is Human. +2 to any stat. You'll get 3% increase in defense, and you'll get 3 more heroic feats. Very useful. I run with the Human. I don't have Ancestry Dragonborn unlocked because it is a bit of a pain in the ass to do so. So I went with Human. It's been working out great ever since. Ability scores. There's been some debate about ability scores for Paladin. A lot of people say you don't really need to go into con. This I find to be very incorrect, since your class feature requires you to have a lot of HP to have more power in the long run, so you can power share to your high DPS and to your DC. But covering over for this build, I went with Con and Charisma. Con, of course, more HP and less damage taken. Pretty straightforward. Went with Charisma for the stamina regen, action point gain, companion stat bonus, and combat advantage bonus. Since it's a tank build, we're not too worried about the combat advantage damage, but the stamina regen is very nice because you can hold up your shield, creating a sanctuary area around you, which reduces the damage that you take and your allies. So the longer you can hold that up, the better it is for yourself and allies. And action point gain is very big, since you want to spam your dailies as often as possible. Now on to gear. Gear changes quite often. Nothing is really 100% set in stone, but there is some options available. Not everything you're going to be able to grab right away unless you have millions of AD just floating around. But some of the basic ones I will cover, and hopefully this will help point you in a right direction. So for gear, I currently use the Crown of the Undead. You get this from mod 14, so whenever you use a daily power, you pull all enemies within 20 feet towards you, stunning undead enemies for 3 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. This isn't the best, but I do like it because I keep enemies by me. So if I ever lose aggro on a particular enemy and it starts going after the DC or the control wizard or the warlock, whoever, I can pop my daily, pull that one back in until my powers are recharged so I can pull aggro again. Other good options are the King Habit. So for the first minute that you are in combat, you will gain 175 power every 5 seconds, If you stay in combat for longer than 1 minute, you will lose 250 power every 5 seconds for a total loss of 3,000 power. Now this one is good because the amount of power that you lose is actually less than what you will gain, so you'll always have that extra power from it. So eventually I am thinking about changing over to this one, but right now I'm really liking the Crown of the Undead. There are other options available to you. You can always grind out, see what you like, but that's the current crown that I'm running with. For chest, I run with the Oathlord's Ward Cuirass. So when your health is 50% or more, your power is increased by 1500. When your health is below 50%, defense is increased by 2000. With the amount of temporary hit points, shields, everything, your health will never go below 50%, and if it does, you're probably already dead. So this way, you're giving yourself an extra 1500 power for power share for your allies, which is huge. This one you get from mod 14. You require to run Castle Ravenloft a couple of times in order to get the seals in order to get it. Another good options are the one from the vendor for the Seals of the Brave, and if that one you're not able to get just yet, if you run the Dwarven Throne of the Dwarven Gods, you can get a chess piece in that has 50,000 HP. That is also a solid one. For arms, I run with the Donjons. This is only the 520 item level one. I am trying to get the 540 item level one. Eventually I will get it, hopefully it's soon. It's got great stats to go with it. Another option for that is for mod 12 is the Primal Restoration ones. So when you're damaged or heal your target for more than 15% of your maximum hit points in a single blow, you gain 1% power for 10 seconds, max 5 stacks. Pretty good. Getting it 5% extra power. The only downside is it's not a constant. You actually have to either damage or heal in order to pull that off. For boots, I run with the Horsemen. So when in combat with only one enemy, movement speed is increased by 1500. There's no perfect boots per se. I am going to grab the new mod 14 ones from the vendor eventually, just for the increase in stats. For rings, I run with Ring of the Grave Striker +5 and Ring of the Grave Striker +4. So when your health is greater than 85%, power is increased by 1000, and then the +4 is by 800. Reason why I run with these is, one, it has 2 offensive slots, and it gives you power, but your health is always going to be above 85%. With your temporary hit points and shields and all that, it will always be there. So that you're giving yourself more power so you can power share to your allies, very important. Now, just so you know, you have to have 2 different pluses. If you run with 2 +5s, you won't get the bonus from both of them. You'll only get it from one. So that's why you have to run with a +4 and a +5. You can also run with the Beat It rings as well, but you won't get the extra power for the power share. For shirt and pants, I run with the Upple Primal pants for your daily's power to do 3% more damage. Not that great, but mainly because your dailies don't really do damage, but again, still solid. Get crit and defense out of it. And then the pants gives you hit points, armor pen, and defense. For weapons, I run with the Pioneer set. As a tank, you're going to definitely always be in a party of 5 running dungeons. So you're going to have 1,000 of power, defense, recovery, crit strike, and armor pen, always. Very useful. It's got great stats. For your set, for your neck, belt, and artifact, the Mod 14 Barovian set is the one that you really want. This is a solid set, gives you good AC, power, defense, deflection. All in all, it is the tanking set. With the 3 set bonus, you whenever you have a shield or temporary HP, which is always, you'll your power is increased by 1,000. So again, more power share. So that would be your neck and your belt. And of course, the artifact that goes with it, Thirst. Now your other artifacts, these can be changed depending on what you have available and what you're able to get your hands on, etc. I always run with Sigil of the Devoted. This is huge because when you activate it, you gain 100% of your total action points over 15 seconds, and you also heal yourself whenever you use an encounter power. You usually have temporary hit points and shields, so not a big thing, but it's being able to spam your dailies, that is huge. Another one that I usually run with as an active, if the team needs it, is the Wheel of Elements. I'll drop that so that the high DBS will get the fire buff, and then they can run in and just destroy everything. But I also have it as one of my equipped ones because of the stats. You get 400 HP, 4,000 HP, 1,000 power, and 600 stamina guard gain. Again, you want to stack as much power and HP you can on your character. Other ones I run with is Sigil of the Oathbound Paladin. This is, of course, your class artifact. Again, you're getting hit points and power from this, plus you get some AoE resist, which is nice. Great thing about Thirst, again, comes with hit points and power, plus defense, which is nice as a tank. And then Sigil of Devotion is one I spam, so I can spam out my dailies, get 1,000 power, 1,000 defense. Enchantments. In your defensive slots, you want to run Radiance. Highest ranking Radiance you have for more HP, because of your class feature. In your offensive slots, you want to run Radiance as well, for more power share, for all your allies. For your utility slots, you should be running with Darks for the movement speed. This will allow you to move faster, hopefully get ahead of the party, especially the great weapon fighters who like to sprint into battle and get one shot. So you might want to put Darks in there. On my guy, since I run with my tank a lot, I started throwing in the Dragon Horde enchantments, the Quartermasters, and the Fey Blessing in order to get refinement and stuff. But it is recommended that you put Darks in there for the movement speed. So that covers over the character page. Oh, actually, armor enhancement slots. So in here, you have a couple of choices. You can run with the Elven Battle, the Eclipse, the Bartwine, Negation, Bark Shield. There's a whole variety there that could work for you. I recommend trying out different ones on the preview server to see what really works for you. I currently run with the Elven Battle one, mainly because I'm more resistant to slows, mobilize, disables, and stuns. This way I'm able to perform my duties as a tank, pull in aggro, keep people focused on me, so my party can completely wipe everything out. For your weapon enhancements slot, a couple of decent ones are like Fey Touch, Lightning, Terror. Basically anything that will be beneficial for the team. You're not there to dish out the damage, you're there to just perform your role as a tank. I run with Unparalleled Fey Touch. Please note that multiple types of Fey Touch will not stack if they're at the same level. If two people are running with Unparalleled Fey Touch, it won't stack. But if they're running at different ones, so if you have one with Transcendent and one with Unparalleled, then they will stack. So just keep an eye out on what people are currently using in your party so that you get the most out of it. Lightning's also a really good one. Great for aggro with all the chains that will happen. And then of course Terror for the increase in damage against those targets that you strike. So that will cover the character page of this. Next we are going to move on to Feats. So, on feats, since I'm human, I will have 3 additional feat points in the heroic portion. So, we're going to cover over all of them, and I'm going to tell you the do's, don'ts, and why. So, toughness. Increase your maximum hit points by 3, 6, 9%. Want to max this out, you want more hit points because of your class feature. Weapon mastery. Increase your critical chance by 1, 2, 3%. Not really necessary. You're a tank, not the damage dealer. I recommend you omit this. Divine action. Activating Divine Call now generates 1 through 5% of your maximum HP. Maximum action point. This is really handy. You're going to be popping your Divine Call quite often, increasing your threat generation to keep aggro. So you want to pop a couple points into here. I got 4 out of 5. Light's Shield. So your damage resistance is increased by 0.5 to 2.5%. I went 5 out of 5 on this because you're a tank. You want to reduce the amount of damage you take. Pretty straightforward. Exemplar's Haste. Your encounter powers recharge 6% faster. 3 out of 3 here. The more you can use your encounter powers, the better. Everything from protecting your allies to generating temporary hit points, pulling in aggro, everything. Wrathful Strikes. Your at-will powers deal 246% more damage. Again, you're a tank. Don't really need this, so I recommend you omit it. Divine Attunement. You receive 246% more healing from spells. Not really overly necessary. You'll have your temporary hit points to negate any damage that you are taking, so you should be perfectly fine, so I do not recommend you take this. Impassion Please. You generate Divine Call energy 246% faster. Spamming your Divine Call, very important for your max 8 action point gain. Strongly recommend you take this one 3 out of 3. Dominating Presence. Your auras have a 2 to 10 increase in radius. Don't really need this. When you're fighting in a group, you're usually within your aura's radius. It's very rare that you wouldn't be, so I wouldn't recommend putting anything into this. Your auras have a radius that's perfectly fine. Your ally should always be with you. I don't recommend taking anything in here. Steadfast. Each point of Constitution now grants an additional 0.5 to 2.5 maximum hit points. I went 5 out of 5 here. More hit points. Very important. Divine Wisdom. Each point of Wisdom now increases healing by an additional 0.33 to 1%. You're not the healer, you're the tank. Not really important. Force of Will. Each point of Charisma now increases your critical chance by an additional 0.33 to 1%. Again, not here to show damage. Recommend you don't take that. So then we'll come up to the Justice. So here you have 2 options. Bound by Light, so your control strength is increased by 2 to 10%. It's quite nice, especially when you use Templar's Wrath, stuns all enemies. Quite nice. Your other option is Swift Flash, so when you are struck by a foe, you have a chance to trigger Flash, granting you increased movement speed of up to 30% for 4 seconds. This can only happen once every 10 seconds. Not overly necessary. You can put a point in this just for the little extra speed boost, but the control strength I find to be more beneficial. Flash of Light. Your encounter powers have a 25% chance to reduce the cooldowns of your nearby allies' encounter powers by 10%. Very big. Helps your allies a lot. They can spam a lot more often. More they can spam, more damage they can deal. Other options are the Furious Reversal, so when you drop below 50% HP, you gain Furious Reversal for 15 seconds. Causes you to gain 10% lifesteal chance for 15 seconds, but it can only occur once every 60 seconds. Your HP shouldn't actually drop below 50%. If it does, you're probably already dead, so not really useful. It's better to help out your allies in the long run, in my opinion. Then there's Radiant Champion. Your very presence inspires allies. When you have at least 2 other allies within 30 of you, all of you gain 25% movement, speed, and 5% cooldown reduction. You're always fighting in a group. You're right in the middle of it. Your allies are all around you. Everyone's going to get that cooldown reduction and movement speed. It's great. Strongly recommend that one. Other option is when there's no allies within 30 of you, all foes who come within 30 of you are snared by 25% and take 5% more damage from all sources. Just so you know, well, first of all, not useful at all. You're running in a group. Allies are always there. But just so you know, your companion counts as an ally. So even if you're running solo and you have your companion summoned, this will not trigger. So strongly recommend you just stay away from it completely. Echoes of Light. Your at-will powers have a 10% chance to trigger Echo on you. Echo makes your next encounter power instantly recharge all of your encounter powers. This effect can only occur once every 15 seconds. This is phenomenal. Just sit there beating on an enemy and boom, Echo. And you can just start spamming your encounter powers again. It's great. Your other option here is Beacon of Hope. So when activating in daily power, cause you become a Beacon of Hope for 6 seconds. Randomly, 3 allies within 30 of you who have taken damage will be healed for 250% of your weapon damage every 2 seconds. Not terrible. However, you are the tank, not really the healer. Echo is more beneficial, I believe. Purifying Fire. Your at-will powers apply Purifying Fire to foes. Purifying Fire stacks up to 5 times, dealing 10% weapon damage each time a stack is applied. This damage is double for each attack applied to the target. Purifying Fire lasts 60 seconds, but is removed when you strike the target with an encounter power. Again, not really here to show damage, so I recommend you omit this one. Prism. Activating a daily power causes you to become a prism for 20 seconds. During this time, anytime you are healed, all allies within 30 of you are also healed for this amount. This effect will not trigger from heals over time effect. You're a tank. Your DC should be focusing heals on you. So this is huge, because every time you get healed, it's going to heal everyone around you. And you're always spamming your dailies. You should be dropping your dailies the moment it pops up, just to keep your allies alive. And then the bread and butter of this. Vengeful Judge. Your Divine Call now applies Judge to yourself for 10 seconds. Judge increases your damage dealt by 35%, not overly important as a tank, but still nice, as well as reduces your cooldown on your current recharging powers by 35%. Your encounter powers have a chance to immediately grant you a charge, a Divine Call. Those 2 parts right there are huge. Popping Divine Call, you're going to reduce the cooldown of any powers that are currently recharging by 35%. And every time you use one, you have a chance to gain Divine Call. So it works hand in hand with each other. And if you remember, we also went activating Divine Call generates more action points. So this works out exceptionally well together. Now for your last 15, we move down to Light. So here you have Gift of Light, so you heal for 10% more, or you can also take Seraphim. So when you take damage, you have a chance to gain Seraphim for 8 seconds. Seraphim increases the strength of your heals by 15%. You're not really healing, but you have to take one. So choice is up to you. I went with Gifts of Light, so I heal 10% more. The next one is Light Touch. Healing spells now generate 10% more action points. Again, you're a tank, not the healer. Don't recommend you put anything into here. Warrior's Bastion. You gain 10% more defense from equipment. This is huge. You're a tank. You want the defense because you're going to be right in the thick of things. Everything should be focused on you. Recommend you take 5 out of 5 here. And then the bread and butter. This is what makes Oathbound Paladins so awesome. Aura's Gifts. Allies within 30 of you gain 25% of your power. They must remain within 30 of you for at least 6 seconds to gain this buff. This is huge. 25% of your power. If you have 40,000 power, you are giving 10,000 power to all your allies. This is huge. So this is the main reason why we stack our power, and as well as HP because of our class feature, which we'll be getting to when we cover powers. So 100% need to take this. Another great thing about Aura's Gifts is allies also refers to your companion. So you're giving that power to your companion, which is very nice. So next, we're going to cover companions. So here, things will change slightly depending on what you have available and what you feel comfortable running with. We're going to start off with covering the active companion, your summon companions, and then we'll talk about any of the active ones that you can that would be useful as a tank. So as an active, Chilton Tiger, very solid companion to have, especially for its killer instincts. So enemies that are affected by the tiger's damage over time, bleeds, takes 10% more damage from all sources, which is huge because the moment that happens, all sources counts for the allies' attacks. They're dealing 10% more damage. Other good ones to have are the Con Artist and Sellsword. They both have the same ability for shredding the enemy's defenses by 10%, which is nice. But the Con Artist is the easier one to gear as it takes 3 ring slots, where the Sellsword, you'll need a sword knot, you'll need a neck piece, and a belt, I believe. Chilton Tiger goes for about $1 million on the auction house right now. You could pick up a Con Artist for 2 gold in the pet place, the Emporium. For your summon companion, of course you want bonding runestones. Very big on this because when your companion activates a power, it'll grant you Companion's Gift, which grants you 65% of your companion stats for 30 seconds. So this will give you 195% of your companion's stats, which is phenomenal. So basically just double whatever you see here, and you're getting that. For your items, you want to go for things that will give you defense, some deflection, stuff like that, because you are a tank. Unfortunately, HP doesn't transfer over with the bonding runestones, which kind of sucks. So that's why I recommend going defense, deflection, anything that you're short on to hit your 80% damage reduction cap. So I have the Ring of Adorable Rolls. It gives me 2 defensive slots. I threw 2 Azures in there for more defense. I got the Necklace of Adorable Rolls. I threw in an Azure and a Silvery for defense and some deflection. And then I have the Beat It Restoration Ring. I threw 2 darks in there for some armor pen because I hit my cap on damage reduction, but I needed some more armor pen, so because of Templar's Wrath requires you to deal damage in order to get the temporary hit points from it. So that's why I have that one. You can also run with another defensive ring for them, throw in some silveries or something for more deflect. Choice is up to you. Again, none of this is set in stone. Just run with what you can and try new things out. I do all the time. As for your other companions, I run with the Dread Warrior. So on damage taken, 10% chance to become enraged, increasing threat generation by 25%. Again, tank, you want that threat generation, so everything focuses on you. And with everybody beating on you all the time, that 10% chance is pretty much a guarantee to trigger. Then I have Sylph. Gives me a 50% control resist. I'm a tank. Being controlled really sucks. I'm not able to do my job then. So this control resist is quite handy. I also have the Rust Monster. So on damage taken, 25% to inflict a 5% damage debuff on attacker. Stacks up to 3 times. So that's 15%. Very useful, especially if you lose aggro on that 1 or 2 individuals and they go off and try to attack your allies. They're not going to be able to one-shot them with that debuff. Plus, you also don't want to be taking all that damage all the time, so reducing their damage is quite useful. Then you have the Energon, which increases your max HP by 5%. Again, more HP with your class feature means more power, and more power is better for the power share. Other options available to you are the Chicken, the Blacksmith, pretty much anything that will help you tank, boost your stats, and just overall lets you perform your duties as a tank is just phenomenal. Again, if you don't have these, just search what's available. Anything that's cheap that you're able to grab just to help you along the way is perfectly fine. There is a lot of companions in this game. You can always have a look on Neverwinter's wiki page, have a look at all the companions and what they do to determine what you think would be best for you. But these are the ones I currently run with. So next we're going to cover mounts. Alright, mounts. So here things will deviate slightly. Basically, your insignias, power and HP is recommended mainly. However, if you need particular stats in something to hit your caps, your 80% DR or something like that, this is where you can really start adding in just to get that extra 0.5, 1% type deal in order to hit your caps that you need. But all in all, power and HP are solid for here. As for your mount powers, you have, I recommend running with Protector's Camaraderie. So whenever your summon companion attacks, you gain 3% of your power and defense for 10 seconds. This effect can stack it to 4 times, so that's 12%. That's huge. More power, more defense. All in all, awesome. If you have a mount power, so if you have a legendary mount that has a mount power, I recommend going with Cavalry's Warning. So Cavalry's Warning, when you activate a mount combat power, you gain an increase of 10% to your power, recovery, armor pen, critical strike, defense, deflection, regeneration, and lifesteal. This is great. This lasts approximately 10 seconds, but again, activating this, you're getting more power, recovery, armor pen, critical. You're just getting everything across the board by 10%. And again, more power is more power to your allies. Very important. If you don't have a mount power, you can always throw in something else. Another good one is Gladiator Guile, which gives you increased movement speed. Very useful. There is other ones, I just can't remember off the top of my head. I recommend doing a search, having a look, see what really works for you. But since I have a legendary mount, I'm running with Cavalry's Warning for that buff, which is huge. Next is Assassin's Covenant. So you lose 10% of your defense, deflection, and lifesteal, and gain the combination of lost stats as power. This is great because, again, you're giving yourself more power you have, more power for the power share for your allies. So this is why we really like to have a lot of defense and some deflection. Lifesteal is not overly important, again, mainly because you have temporary hit points, which is going to negate the damage that you're going to take. Next is Shepherd's Devotion. Whenever you use a daily power, your teammates' defense, deflection, and movement are increased by 5% of your power for 10 seconds. You're constantly spamming your dailies. And so you're basically right here, you're just trying to keep your allies alive in case you can't keep aggro on something. One of the big ones is Orcus, Aspect of Orcus, the very first boss in Tong. No one can keep 100% aggro on Orcus. So this is very useful, especially if that one bloody minion just sneaks off and then tries to one-shot your DC. So increasing everybody's defense deflection is huge. And then you have Artificer's Persuasion. So whenever you use an artifact power, your recovery, movement, action point gain, and stamina gain are increased by 10% of your power for 15 seconds. You're popping your artifact all the time. Every minute that it is back up, you're hitting it again. So you're getting a lot of recovery, movement, action point gain, and stamina gain. The big one is the action point gain. Allows you to spam your dailies more often, which coincides with Shepherd's Devotion and your other feats that you have taken. For combat power, one of the best ones to have is the T-Rex. So you summon the Tyrannosaurus, causing your enemies to fear, rooting them for 5 seconds, and lowering their defenses by 10% for 10 seconds. If the target is a minion, the T-Rex will consume them. Two big points on this. The T-Rex powers stacks with other T-Rex powers. So if 2, 3, or the entire party or something has T-Rex and you all throw them out at the same time, they all stack, which is phenomenal. 2, if you target a minion, the T-Rex will consume them. This works on the souls for the final boss of Tong. When the souls pop up that you have to destroy, usually there's always that one that's off to the side. You could use this to eat the soul and destroy them instantly. For equip power, I recommend the Dominant Force for the 4000 power. They're not easy to come by, but if you can, I recommend trying to get something with power here, because again, more power for you is more power for your power share, which in turn gives more power to your allies. Now we will move on to Boons. So if you are in a guild, which I strongly recommend that you should be, there is a couple of options available to you here, but 2 are pretty much 100% guaranteed and then the other one is completely up to you. So in offense, we of course want the power bonus for the 8,000 more power. More power for you, again, more power for your allies. For defense, you want to use the hit point bonus, because that gives you 32,000 more hit points, which with the class feature would give you 3,200 more power again, more power for your allies, plus with one of your auras, the more power or more hit points you have is the more damage you deal. Other options are available, however, you should be able to hit your defense bonus with your gear and from your companions. Lifesteal is not really necessary. By the way, there are options up here like armor pen, crit, and stuff. Not overly important. Utility is up to you. I run with the XP bonus, mainly to get more of the overflow rewards. You can run with the mount movement speed. There is the group heal bonus, so causes healing potions to heal your group members at 75% effectiveness. There's revive sickness. Probably don't need to really worry about this, but tanks do die. It happens. Don't feel bad. It happens all the time. So that's a solid one to run with, because you reduce it from 4.5 minutes down to 1. That way, if you ever do get picked up in a dungeon, which usually endgame dungeons, nobody should be picking anyone up. You should be able to scroll yourself up, but it's always a possibility. That one does come in handy. And then there's healing potion bonus, so increase healing from healing potions by 48%. Again, not bad. And then that one's glory, and that one's your treasure hunter, so nothing to worry about that. And then of course you got PvP boons, which have nothing to do with tanking in the PvE area. We're going to skip PvP and go to Sharandar. So in Sharandar, you have your first choice between 400 defense and 400 power. Just throwing this right out there, anytime you have a choice between power and HP, take those options. Forget everything else, just go with power and HP. If those are not two options, then you'll have to decide which you would like to take. So of course, between defense and power, we want power. Then you have 400 deflect or 400 critical strike. Again, not the damage dealer, went with the deflect. Here we have max HP increased by 1600, or action point gain 3% faster. Went with the HP. When being struck by a foe, you have a chance to heal yourself for up to 20,000 hit points. And then you have striking a foe, you have a chance to deal up to 2,000 or 20,000 arcane damage. Again, you're the tank, you're always getting beat on. That's a nice one to have, especially if you accidentally lost all your shields and temporary hit points. This help keep you alive. Plus, this will also trigger off of your prism to heal everyone, which is very nice. For your final ones, you have a couple of choices. So stamina regen 10% faster in combat, not overly important. Shield is very rarely held up for extended periods of time where it's really going to drain. That won't replenish itself. Plus, if you're running with the Eclipse armor enchant, it won't matter at all. You'll always have stamina. So recommend not grabbing this one. Then you have, when you deflect an attack, you deal up to 3,000 damage to your attacker. This one's not bad. If you got some decent deflect, it's going to cause you to deal some damage to the enemies around you. Not overly the best. since you're not really there to do damage, but still a solid one. The good one here is if you kill a foe, you gain 135 power for 45 seconds. This buff stacks up to 30 times. Unfortunately, being the tank, it's very rare that you're going to kill anything. However, this is still a solid choice. I would actually take this one over Fey Thistle, because there is that off chance that you are going to kill a foe, and you're going to gain 135 power, which you're going to be able to power share. So I should have taken this one. Unfortunately, I went with this one, but that's quite alright. Still decent. And then you have potions now heal you for 10% more. Don't even worry about it. Not even important. Dread Ring. Choices between 250 power, 250 movement, or 250 critical strike and 250 movement. Of course, power will always trump anything. Definitely grab the power one. Choice between 400 lifesteal and 400 regen. Go with the regen, very helpful. 3% deflect chance or 3% resistance ignored. Again, you're not really here to deal damage, so I wouldn't pick the resistance ignored. I'd go with the deflect chance. So when taking damage, you have a chance to heal up to 20,000 hit points over a few seconds. After this effect ends, you have 4,000 more defense for 10 seconds. Quite nice, especially when you're always taking damage as a tank. Your other option was when dealing damage, you have a chance to deal up to 20,000 necrotic damage over a few seconds. After this effect ends, the target receives 25% less healing from spells for 10 seconds. Again, not the damage dealer. This is a solid one to take. For your last one, 4 options are Augmented Dian Bastion. When taking damage, you have a chance to generate a shield that absorbs 10,000 incoming damage and redirects that damage to a nearby foe. This shield lasts for 6 seconds. Not a bad one. You're always taking damage, so, but again, not really here to deal damage, but still a overall solid one. So when you deal damage, you gain a stack of madness. When you reach 50 stacks of madness, you gain 4,000 power, 4,000 lifesteal, and 4,000 regeneration. 10 seconds after gaining this bonus, the stacks are reset. You may only gain 1 stack of madness per second. This is a really useful one. Unfortunately, it takes a while to charge up. You are, of course, dealing damage. You're not dealing a lot of damage, but you are. So you will always be gaining these stacks, and then you're going to grab that 4,000 power, and you're going to share that with your team, which is phenomenal. So this is a very solid pick. When you steal health from your lifesteal stat, it has a chance to steal 3 times as much. Again, you're not stealing health. You're tanking, and your temporary hit points is negating all that damage that you really should be taking to your HP, so not useful at all. You're not doing any lifesteal, and if you do take any damage, you got a DC or a Scourge Warlock healing you. So your healing spells have a chance to burn enemies near the target up to 2,000 radiant damage. Again, you're not really healing, but you do have Prism, and you are doing some, especially with all your abilities, proccing all the time, giving a little bit of HP to all your allies every time you get healed. But again, not really here to do the damage. I recommend grabbing Rampaging Madness for the power, even though it doesn't trigger that often. Or you can take this one, but again, not really there to do damage. This one is more the solid one that's going to really help out your team. Icewind Dale. You got 400 AoE resist or 400 combat advantage bonus. Again, not really here to dish out the damage. Probably best to go with the 400 AoE resist. You have a choice between 400 incoming healing bonus or 400 stamina gain. I went with the healing bonus. Constantly getting healed. The more I get healed, the more I'm healing my allies around me with my prism. This one works out exceptionally well. But you can go with the stamina gain if you so choose. The options are available to you. 400 recovery or 2% crit severity. Again, not here to dish out damage. You can pretty much omit this one and go with the 400 recovery. When damaged by a foe, you have a chance to proc Cold Shoulders on them, which will reduce the damage of their next attack by up to 2000%. You gain up to 2000 power based on how much stamina or guard you are missing. These are both solid options to have. The choice is up to you. I have noticed that during Castle Ravenloft I have had my shield up a lot, mainly in the last boss, so that would be a solid one to grab. But this one is also still solid to reduce the damage that they're dishing out, especially if you lose aggro on them and they wander off and try attacking your teammates. For your final one, couple of options. When damaged by a foe, chance to gain a stack of Avalanche at 20 stacks. Taking damage will clear stacks, deal 15,000 damage to nearby targets. Damage over time. Effects will not trigger this ability. Not a terrible one, but again, you don't really want to dish out all the damage because you're here to tank, not deal damage. Chance when healed to gain up to 300 damage bonus on your next attack. Again, not really here to deal damage, but you are constantly being healed. Chance to gain bonus 10% action points when killing a target. Chances of you killing a target is very slim to nil as a tank, but the option is still available to you, so still a chance. Drinking a healing potion now heals allies within 35 feet of you for 10% of the potion's value. Late game, nobody really has healing potions anymore. We're all running with the stones to instantly refill our lives, so most people wouldn't have this. Choice for this one is up to you. There is 3 solid options. I went with this one in particular, constantly being healed, but everything is available to you. The choice will be ultimately up to you. Underdark. Choice between 400 defense and 1600 HP, or 400 power and 1600 HP. Power will always trump everything. Power and HP will always trump everything. So go with the 400 power and 400 maximum hit points. Choice between 400 lifesteal and 1600 HP, or 400 critical strike and 1600 HP. Again, not really here to dish out the damage, but the choices are between lifesteal and crit. That is going to be up to you. Either one of these is decent. 1200 regen. Combat advantage damage bonus is increased by 10%. Again, not really here to dish out the damage. Regeneration is more beneficial. Controlling effects will now have a 5% shorter duration when applied to you, or you now regaining stamina 5% faster. Both are decent. However, the 5% shorter durations for the control effects on you is most likely more beneficial. One, you'll have plenty of stamina regen. I wouldn't worry too much about it. And 2, nothing's worse than a tank that's being feared, knocked around, charmed. If you can reduce the controlling effects on you, that is huge. That way you can do your job, pull in aggro, keep your team alive, and it just makes it much more beneficial. But again, all this is completely up to you. I'm just giving you my opinions on these. For the final one, you have 25% control bonus versus demons. Very situational. Demons do 5% less damage to you, Again, situational. You have a chance to slay lesser demons outright when attacking them. Chance runs from 0 to 5%, depending on the demon's hit points remaining. Again, situational. All this has to do with demons. And then Abyssal Strikes gain 10% damage versus demons. All this has to deal with demons. The choice is up to you. The damage dealing to them is not overly important, nor is slaying them outright. The odds of that happening are basically nil. So really you have a choice between control bonus versus demons, or they deal less damage to you. I went with the less damage. Less damage I'm taking, the longer my temporary hit points and shields last. I find that to be more beneficial. Tyranny of Dragons. Choice between 1600 HP or 400 power. Now, unfortunately, you have to make a choice between these two. The 400 power is more beneficial than the 1600 HP. The 1600 HP, you're only going to get 160 power, and then you can only power share 25% of that. For this one, you're getting 400 power, and you're able to power share 100 of that. Much more beneficial for yourself and the party to go with the power of the HP. Then you have a choice between 400 deflect or 400 critical strike. Again, not the damage dealer, I went with the deflect. Chance between 400 defense or 400 armor pen. Again, went with the defense, you're the tank. 400 lifesteal or 400 regen. I went with the regen, more beneficial than the lifestealing. And then for your final boons, you have a choice between 6% increased lifesteal, 15% increased incoming healing, 8% critical severity, and 15 increased control strength. I went with the control strength. Again, critical severity, we're not the damage dealer. The increased incoming healing is also a solid one to take. And then increase in lifesteal. Don't worry about the lifesteal, but the increase in incoming healing or the increased in control strength are both solid ones to pick. Maze Engine. You have a choice between 5% lifesteal severity or 400 incoming healing bonus. Again, not really stacking lifesteal. We are a tank. We have temporary hit points and shields, so I usually skip anything with lifesteal unless the other option's even worse. So I went with the 400 incoming healing bonus. The more I heal my allies with Prism. It's phenomenal. 400 combat advantage bonus, or control effects will now have a 5% shorter duration when applied to you. Again, we're not here to dish out damage, and be able to have shorter durations on control effects against you is huge, so you're able to do your job, pull an aggro, etc., etc. Demonic Endurance. Your stamina regenerates 10% faster in combat. Your action point gain 3% faster. Again, don't really need to worry too much about stamina. You'll have plenty of stamina regen, and your shields won't always be up, so you'll be able to manage that without much problem. I went with the action point gain, so I can spam my dailies more often, so my mount power will trigger more often, and same with my feat. So I find this to be more beneficial. Then for your final ones, you have when below 30% health, you gain a shield increasing damage resistance by 60% for 3 seconds. Your health should never drop unless you're going to die. And you're already at cap for damage resistance at 80%, so not overly super important, but still an option available to you. Your healing spells have a chance to heal allies around you for 20,000 hit points. Again, you're not the healer, you're the tank. If you're running devotion build, that's a different story. but not overly beneficial for you. When striking a foe, you have a chance to gain 2,000 critical strike bonus for 6 seconds. Again, not really here to show damage, wouldn't worry too much about it. Grants 10% increased control strength. Again, being able to control your enemies is quite nice. I got the helm that allows me to pull them around. I got Templar's Wrath, which stuns them. I occasionally run with Blinding Light to stun them. Very beneficial. Elemental Evil. 300 power and 2,000 HP, or 300 defense and 2,000 HP. Again, power will always win. 4% lifesteal severity and 2,000 HP. 400 regen and 2,000 HP. Again, not too worried about that lifesteal. You got the temporary hit points, the shields, and the DC healing you all the time. I recommend going with the regeneration. 400 recovery, 2,000 HP. 400 critical strike and 2,000 HP. Again, not the damage dealer. I went with recovery. Chance to gain bonus 10% stamina gain for 10 seconds when killing a target. Odds are you're not really going to be killing a target, and you'll have your stamina gain will be fine. Just don't hold your shield up 24/7. Chance to gain bonus 10% lifesteal severity for 10 seconds when killing a target. Again, not really killing a target since you're the tank, and the lifesteal severity not very useful since we're not stacking lifesteal. When taking damage, you have a chance to heal up to 24,000 hit points over a few seconds. This effect ends. Your recovery is increased by 1,000 for 10 seconds. You're always taking damage, so this should proc. Healing yourself, which is awesome because also triggers off your prism, etc., etc., healing your allies. And then at the end of the effect, you're gaining 1,000 recovery on top of that. So that is a solid one to pick. When taking damage, you have a chance to heal up to 24,000 hit points over a few seconds. After this effect ends, your critical strike is increased by 1,000 for 10 seconds. Basically the exact same one as this one. Except this one is recovery, this one is crit. Again, not really damage dealers. This is probably your better bet. But the choice is, of course, ultimately yours. Storm King's Thunder. I hate this campaign. Choice between you gain 2% control resistance and 1,000 HP, or 2% lifesteal severity and 1,000 HP. Again, not worried about lifesteal. So I went with the control resistance, so I'm not controlled as often, so I'm able to do my job. You gain 400 stamina gain and 2% Everfrost damage resistance, 400 incoming healing, 2% Everfrost damage resistance. I went with the incoming healing. Again, I heal more, my prism triggers, and I heal my allies even more from it. Again, don't worry about your stamina gain. You'll be fine. Your shield won't be up 24/7. Everything, you'll have lots of regen stuff, so don't worry about that. Gain up to 2,000 recovery based on how much stamina or guard you are missing, or chance when taking damage to gain 2,000 damage bonus on your next attack. Choice is yours. This doesn't happen too much for a lot of loss of stamina. So either one of these options is decent. You are always taking damage, and you're going to dish out just a little extra. Not a terrible choice, but again, not the damage dealer, but really either one of these will work perfectly fine. When you kill a foe, you have a chance to deal up to 2,000 fire damage to all nearby enemies. You also gain 2% Everfrost damage resistance, or your max HP is increased by 3,200 and 2% Everfrost damage resistance. Like before, if it's power or HP, always take it. Plus, you're not really killing anyone as a tank, usually. So, definitely go with the HP. Then for your final one, you have get 3 choices here to put your. Sorry, you have 4 choices, but 3 points to put into any of them. So when striking a foe, you have a chance to gain a stack of Icy Chill. At 10 stacks, your next attack will clear all stacks and release a burst that deals 10,000, 12,000, 14,000 damage to targets close to you. Damage over time does not affect or trigger this ability. Again, not really here to dish out the damage. Then you have when healing allies, healing spells have a chance to damage up to 5 enemies near the target for up to 4, 5, 6,000 damage. You're constantly healing allies from your prism, which is huge. So you're always dishing out a little damage here and there from it, which is quite nice. Healing potions now heal you for 15%, 10, 12.5, 15% more. Again, I don't use healing potions. I use these stones of health. So I recommend not bother taking that one. So then there's when you deflect an attack, you deal 5, 6, 7,000 damage to your attackers. On this build, I used to have a lot more deflect. I've kind of moved it slightly down in order to balance it a bit more. I was deflecting a little too much, and I wasn't always able to keep up that 10% of my HP converted into power for my power share when I was running some lower level dungeons. So I reduced some of my deflection in order to make it more beneficial. But these are 2 solid choices that you can pick. Cloaked Ascendancy. Another campaign I hated doing. Choice between when you kill an enemy, you have a chance to demoralize up to 5 enemies within 25 feet, stunning them for 4 seconds. Not probably going to kill anything, but options there. Or when you kill an enemy, you have a chance to emit an aura hope that will boost action point gain for all allies within 25 feet for 10 seconds. Much more beneficial. Chance of you killing something is from the nil, but again, if you do, you're helping out your allies, giving them more action point gain, and they're going to be able to spam their dailies more often. Choice between 2% incoming healing bonus and 1,000 maximum hit points, or 2% crit severity and 1,000 maximum hit points. Again, not the damage dealer, don't really need that crit severity. So the 2% incoming healing bonus is much nicer. Choice between 500 recovery, 2,000 hit points, or 500 lifesteal and 2,000 hit points. Again, not worried about the lifesteal. Recovery is far more beneficial. Then for the top, you have 4 choices. When you land a critical strike, your stamina regenerates 10% faster for 10 seconds. Again, not too worried about your stamina. You got plenty. Overall, not super beneficial. When you deflect an attack, you regain up to 8,000 hit points. This effect can only happen once every 10 seconds. Again, you are going to have some deflect. Well, I should say I recommend that you have some deflect to help reduce the amount of damage that you're constantly taking, so you're able to stay in the middle of the fight, and your temporary hit points and your shields and stuff can take that damage without completely disappearing on you. Aberrant Power. When damaged by a foe, chance to gain a stack of Aberrant Power. At 10 stacks, taking damage will clear the stacks, deal up to 10,000 damage to nearby targets. Aberrant creatures take double damage. Damage over time effects will not trigger this ability. Again, not really here to dish out the damage, but you are constantly taking damage, so it is something to keep in mind. Aberrant Slaughter. You have a chance to slay lesser aberrant creatures outright when attacking them. Chance runs from 0 to 5%, depending on the creature's hit points remaining. Again, not very useful. If they're lesser and you're in a party, your allies are just going to mow through them anyway, so not useful at all. So this is probably one of your better ones. You can take this one if you like. Again, choice is completely up to you. Jungles of Cholt. So this one's a bit interesting, as you can see how I spread it out. So I'll cover the ones that I completely skipped, and then I'll talk about the other ones. So I skipped on you gain 5, 10, 15% increased damage versus dinosaurs and maximum hit points. We're not here to deal damage, so I skipped that one. And then 5, 10, 15% increased damage resistance versus dinosaurs. Very situational, not very useful. I went 3 out of 3 for you gain 1000 power and 1600 HP. And then I went 1 out of 1 on these guys, because this one is gain 500 regen and 1200 HP, 500 defense and 800 HP, and 500 deflect and 800 HP. As you can tell, there's each level you're only slightly increasing your HP gain. So I put 1 point to gain the maximum amount right off the bat. The difference between if I put all 3 points in here would only be 2000 HP, but right off the bat I'm grabbing 800 there, 800 there for an extra 16 on top of that, so I'm getting 2800 HP as opposed to just 2000. So it's more beneficial to spread it out between the 3 for more HP. But again, choice is completely up to you. For your top ones, you have choices on chance on hit to gain a stack of Soul Siphon. On killing a creature, you release all stacks of Soul Siphon in a burst at all nearby enemies. Each enemy receives 2000 damage per second, lasting 1 second per stack of Soul Siphon. You restore 1% of your max health for every stack released, stacks up to 10 times. Additional tiers of this boon add 1000 to the damage and 0.5% max health gain per stack. Again, not really going to be killing anything, so not overly beneficial for yourself or the party. Chance on hit to apply Lingering Curse to your target, which lasts for 10 seconds. Can be applied once per 60 seconds. When a target which has Lingering Curse is killed, its soul explodes out of a random enemy within 20 feet, causing 3000 damage and applying Lingering Curse. Additional tiers of this boon adds 15,000 damage to the soul explosion. Again, not really here to dish out the damage, so not overly beneficial to your party. When an enemy dies nearby, you reduce incoming damage by 1% and gain 40 incoming healing bonus. Rating for 10 seconds stacks up to 5 times. Additional tiers of this add 0.5 reduction to the incoming damage and 20 incoming healing bonus per stack. I did 1 out of 2 on this one. I'll cover over why in a second. Chance of being hit to gain a stack of Impenetrable Jungle at 10 stacks the next hit taken, or release a burst rooting all enemies nearby for 4 seconds. Additional tiers of this boon add 2 seconds to the root time of enemies. So I did 1 on this one and 1 on this one. I took this one to root the enemies because it is a controlling effect, and some people do have increase in damage against controlled targets. But also this roots them, prevents them from leaving me and going attack to my allies if I lose aggro on them. So I find this to be quite beneficial. And I did 1 out of 2 on this one. So when an enemy dies nearby, which happens all the time, I'm right in the middle of the fight. Enemies are dying left, right, and center around me from my high DPS ally that's killing everything. And this allows me to reduce incoming damage by 1% and up to 5% for stacking, and then 200 incoming healing bonus rating. So this is quite useful to help with reducing incoming damage. And then the new mod 14, Ravenloft. I'm going to cover all of them and then show you which one I picked. So you can have up to 1200 recovery, 1200 movement, 1200 control resist, 15% increased damage versus undead, 15 increased damage resistance versus undead, or 4,800 maximum hit points. You don't really need these. This is too situational, and you're not here to dish out damage. Recovery is nice, but there's HP on the board, so always go with the HP, of course. 1200 movement. It is nice since we're one of the slower classes, but again, there's HP on the board, so you want to take the HP. And the 1200 control resist, that's actually quite nice, but again, HP is on the board. Always want to go with HP. And then for your other choice, you have every critical hit against an enemy has a chance to add a stack at 10 stacks, gain 2400 increased power for 10 seconds. This buff can only be applied once every 60 seconds. This is nice, but it can only be applied once every 60 seconds. And it only lasts for 10 seconds. So you're going to have a 50-second window where this is not going to come into play at all for the increase in power. But still, it is nice. It does have an increase in power. Healing another player for 10% of their maximum hit points gives a chance of applying a heal over time that will heal 5% of their maximum hit points every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Again, you are doing some healing with your prism and everything. However, you're not the healer, but this is an option available to you. But you might find it kind of difficult in order to hit 10% of their maximum hit points for healing off of prism. Hypnotic Gaze. Anytime you use a root, stun, hold, daze on an enemy, you have a chance to increase the combat advantage damage of nearby allies by 5% for 10 seconds. This can only happen once every 60 seconds. You have a lot of root, stuns, holds, and dazes available to you from your powers and from other boons. However, this can only happen once every 60 seconds, and it will only last for 10 seconds. It is a decent choice, but again, you got that 50-second window of nothing happening. I went with Righteous Sacrifice. Taking 10% or more of your maximum health and damage grants nearby allies 800 power for 5 seconds, stacks a maximum of 5 times. You're the tank. Everything's hitting you. Somebody's going to be able to do that 10% or more of your maximum health and damage, and you're going to be able to use that power to power share it for your allies, stacking 5 times. That's 4,000 power, which is going to power share another 1,000 power to your allies. That is a nice one. I recommend running with that. So that concludes boons, and now we will cover over powers. So powers are very situational. It completely depends on the party makeup, the particular dungeon, trial, skirmish that you're running, and if you're running full tank, if you need more aggro, if you need more control, etc., etc. So I'll just cover over all of them and tell you do's, don'ts, whys, why nots, and stuff like that. And hopefully it will be helpful for you. So first we'll just go over the general ones. So as a paladin you have Sanctuary. So holding your shift key, or if you're on console, whichever button it is, you're going to erect a zone of safety where you gain 30% increased damage resistance and allies gain 10% increased damage resistance and are rapidly healed. You are immune to some control effects while maintaining this zone. It's very nice. You can hold your shield to avoid being knocked around, charmed, stuff like that. It's quite useful. But you're also increasing the damage resistance of your allies, which is quite useful. It keeps them alive longer, plus you are healing them. Again, going back to all the boons that we just took, quite beneficial. Now, if you went Protection, you're actually gaining 80% damage resistance, and allies are gaining 20% damage resistance. So you're actually increasing the damage resistance of your allies by 20%. Not too worried about the 80% damage resistance for you. You should already have capped damage resistance as a tank. And then Devotion, healing is a sanctuary. Healing of Sanctuary is increased by 200%. Again, we're talking tanking here, so we went protection route, so not overly important. Heroic Effort is from Human. That gave me the 3 additional feat points. And then my defense is 3% higher than any other race because I'm human. You'll have Religion as a skill. And then the bread and butter of our class is our Oath of Protection. So your damage resistance is increased by 10%. You generate 500% more threat. When you take damage, you gain power proportional to the amount of damage you took. This bonus caps at 10% of your max HP and power. This is why we have been really pushing hard for getting as much HP as we can. Because your total HP, you're going to get 10% of that in power when you take damage. But you have to take that damage. Now there is a 10-second timer on this. So when you go into battle and you get hit and it only does X amount of damage, say 1% of your total HP, you're only going to get that 1% for the power. But if another enemy hits you within that 10 seconds and does another 1%, you're actually going to get 2%. And it's going to just build up. So over the course of a few seconds, you're going to hit your 10% with pretty much ease. So you're always going to have that 10% max HP into power. And hopefully I explained that well enough. If not, throw it down in the comments below and I'll try my best to explain it better. Now on to your combat powers. So we're going to start by covering our auras. So these are going to be our class features. So the options available to you are Aura of Courage, Aura of Truth, Aura of Vengeance, Aura of Wisdom, Aura of Protection, and Aura of Wrath. And Aura of Radiance, Aura of Valor, and Aura of Solitude. I forgot that there's a lot of them. So, Aura of Courage. You and allies within 30 of you deal 1% of your maximum hit points as bonus radiant damage. This damage is increased up to 30% more as it increases in level. This is pretty much one of the very important ones that you always run with. This should pretty much never change. Now unless you're running with another OP, in which case, depending on how everything works out, usually you both run the same aura, but remember that the auras don't stack. You'll only get the benefit of one aura. Now this wording up here is a little bit off. So it says you and your allies within 30 of you deal 1% of your maximum hit points as bonus radiant damage. That your is dependent on the character. So you'll deal 1% of your maximum hit points as bonus radiant damage, but the control wizard will deal 1% of their maximum hit points as bonus radiant damage, and the GWF will deal 1% of their maximum hit points as bonus radiant damage. It's not completely based off of yours. But still, an excellent choice. That's why you'll see a lot of people boosting their HP in order to benefit from this. This is a nice amount of damage, because this is per attack. Anything that does damage to them is dealing extra damage from this. The other must run with class feature is Aura of Wisdom. You and allies within 30 of you gain 10% increased recharge speed, increased by an extra 15% for 25% increased recharge speed. This is huge. The more people can spam their encounters, the more beneficial it is. And this also includes you and allies. Other options available to you are Aura of Truth. Foes within 30 of you deal 5% less damage. Get up to another 7.5% on top of that for 12.5%. Not a terrible one to reduce the damage that the enemies are dealing. But again, you're the tank, you should be pulling an aggro, everything should be focused on you, and you should have your damage cap, damage resistant cap at 80%. Plus with your all your shields and your temporary hit points, you shouldn't need to run with this. Aura of Vengeance. When you or allies within 30 of you take damage, they deal 15% of your weapon damage to their attacker as radiant damage. Extra 30% on that for a total of 45%. This is a decent one because when you or allies within 30 of you take damage, but unfortunately it is a low amount of damage, and it's actually more beneficial to run with Aura of Courage and Aura of Wisdom. Aura of Protection. You and allies within 30 of you gain 5% increased damage resistance with an extra 7.5 to give you a total of 12.5. This is a decent one, but again, Aura of Wisdom, Aura of Courage, definitely more beneficial. But if you're running with two OPs in a group, doesn't hurt to have this one to reduce the damage that the allies will be taking. They can also run with Aura of Vengeance. Aura of Wrath. You and allies within 30 you gain 20% increased damage as your hit points diminish, with an extra 15% on top of that to give you a total of 35%. This is not very beneficial because people should not be losing HP. The only person being attacked should be you, and you should have your temporary hit points and your shields to negate that damage to your HP. As for everyone else, if they are getting hit and stuff, the DC, Scourge Warlock, or Devotion OP should be keeping their hit points topped off. So this is not super beneficial. Aura of Radiance. Foes within 30 of you take damage every 3 seconds. This damage builds bonus threat. Bonus threat is nice, but again, the other auras are far more beneficial. And you have a lot of different ways to generate threat. Everything from your Divine Call to your encounter powers to your at-wills, everything. So I wouldn't worry too much about this one. Aura of Valor. Allies within 30 of you who are below 40% HP cause you to generate 100% more threat. This affects stacks, and then health threshold is increased by an extra 15%, so 55% HP. Again, you have a lot of ways of generating threat and forcing threat on you. Not super necessary. Aura of Solitude. When no allies are within 30 of you, you deal 12% more damage and healing, with an increase of 9 on top of that for a total of 21. This seems like the better choice over some of the other ones, but again, your companion counts as an ally. So this will never trigger for you, even if you're running solo. So you can completely omit this one. Next we'll cover over at-wills. Radiant Strike. You lunge at a foe, unleashing a burst of light. You are also granted Radiance. Radiance, your armor penetration and damage are increased by 5% for 15 seconds, does not stack. And then increasing in rank, it just increases the overall damage that you do upon the initial strike. Not super important about getting the armor or the damage an armor pen, but it is beneficial in two ways. One is with the additional armor pen and damage, you'll do more damage with your Templar's Wrath, which we'll be covering shortly, which generates your temporary hit points based on the damage that you do. So that is quite useful, but the main reason I have this one is in case I need to dash into a fight, or if I get knocked out of that fight, I can dash right back in. I don't have to try to run to get back into the fight. This is just a quick way to get in. I'll Radiant Strike in, I'll drop either Binding Oath or Templar's Wrath, whichever one I hit first, and then use the other one, pull in everyone, and just go to town, keeping everyone focused on me. So I find this is a great way to initialize, and a great way to get back into a fight if you do get kicked out from being knocked back, charmed, feared, whatever happens. So this is an excellent one to keep slotted. Valorious Strike. You strike your foe with the weapon, channeling the force of justice to destroy your target. If the third swing connects, you gain Valor for 15 seconds. Valor, your damage resistance is increased by 5%. Can be useful, but again, I already have my damage resistance at 80% already, which is capped, so I have no use for this. But if you are lacking, this is something that you can use. But again, you should already have that 80% cap without this, because there is a better at-will that I would recommend that you use. And speaking of that better at-will, this at-will unfortunately does the least amount of damage, but Oath Strike, you strike your foe with a quick flurry of blows. The final strike of this power changes based on your oath. We went Oath of Protection, so the final strike of this power forces the target to attack you for 3 seconds. Don't worry about this last part, this is about PvP. So this is the main reason I run with Oath Strike. On the third strike of this, it forces a target to attack me for 3 seconds. So if I'm not able to keep its attention, this is a great way to make it keep my attention. So this is a superb one to run with. Your last at-will, which is also a solid one to run with, is Shielding Strike. You strike your foe with a brutal swing. On the final strike of this combo, gain a shield that absorbs damage. The shield stacks up to 3 times and lasts 8 seconds. This one actually doesn't show anything onto your health bar about a shield. But you do get that shield, and it does negate some damage, so it's very beneficial for tanking. But again, I run with Oath Strike to force the target to attack me, and with Radiant Strike so I can get into the fight first, and back into a fight if I get kicked out of it for some reason. Next, I'm going to cover over dailies, and then I want to do encounter powers, because encounter powers are very situational. For dailies, you have Divine Judgment, so you summon vengeance on your foes, causing incredible damage in a small area around the target. This is a really big hitting daily, and it does a small splash around it too. There's actually been times when I've dropped this and the enemies around the initial target took more damage than the target that it landed on due to critting. But this is mainly for a damage dealing build. I don't run with this, but you can have it slotted. It is an option. Heroism. You gain 100% of your maximum hit points as temporary hit points, gain 15% increased damage resistance, and gain immunity control effects for 4 seconds. With an additional 6 seconds on top of that for a total of 10 seconds. So, your temporary hit points, you have other ways of getting them. So, not super important, plus you get actually more than 100% of your maximum HP and temporary hit points the other ways. 15% damage resistance. Again, you're already at cap, not super important. Gain immunity to controls for 4 seconds, or technically 10. That is a very nice part of it. Unfortunately, not super beneficial for the party. But it is an option. Lay on hands. You immediately heal the target for 100% of the maximum HP and remove all damage over time effects from the target. This power consumes AP proportional to the amount of HP the target is missing. And then action point cost is just reduced. This targets one individual for a quick heal. Again, you're not here to heal. You're here to tank and reduce the damage that your allies are taking. Which brings us to Shield of Faith. This is one of the main ones I pop for my allies. So I summon a divine shield to protect you and your allies for 6 seconds. Any damage taken by allies is reduced by 30% and they receive 30% more healing. And an additional 6 seconds on top of that for 12 seconds. I can pretty much keep this up and running the entire time. Every 12 seconds I'm pretty much able to pop this. So that is huge to reduce the damage they take by 30% and increase their healing by 30%. And again, with our Sanctuary from our shift key, holding up our shield creates that bubble that heals, and from Prism from our Feats, and they're taking 30% more healing and a reduce of 30% for damage. Very beneficial. I always have this one slotted, even on a DPS build, just in case. It's just too good to pass up. And then the last one is Divine Protector. For 3 seconds, you shield all your allies from harm. You redirect 60% of the damage they would take to yourself. All damage you would take while this effect is active is reduced by 60%. And again, an extra 3 seconds on that, for a total of 3 seconds. This is also another solid one to have. Unfortunately, this one only lasts for 3 seconds, but if you know there's a big hit coming up to your allies, since this one only does 30%, you might want to pop this one instead for that 60%, just to make sure no one dies from that big boss hit or something. And now on to encounter powers. So we'll start off with Burning Light. So you emit a binding light for up to 4 seconds based on how long the power is charged. Damage disorient foes who are caught in this light. You receive 100% more healing while emitting light. And then increase in ranks just increases its damage. This one is quite beneficial as it is disorients the foes, which stops their animation. So if they're preparing to do a particular move against you, you can just quickly tap it and it will cause a quick flash which will cancel the animation of the enemy who is about to do the move. Of course doesn't work on bosses like that, but just the run-of-the-mill enemies that you'll run into, it's quite beneficial. And big thing about this, if you fully charge this up and you get the lightning enchant on it, it's a quick way of burning through mobs, and it causes a constant effect over 4 seconds, preventing them from being able to do anything including attack, which is quite nice. Also with this, you can actually charge this up before you enter into combat, and then you can dash in with Radiant Strike, and this will still trigger. It's like basically creating a bubble around you. It's a phenomenal skill. Mainly used in DPS builds, but I occasionally run it if I know that we're going to be coming across a lot of enemies with a lot of abilities that can really screw up my team. I use this one in order to stop them from casting those abilities like Fear and stuff. Sacred Weapon. Your next 3 single target attacks deal bonus radiant damage to your target. For Oath of Protection, your next 3 single target attacks also forces the target to attack you for 3 seconds. Pretty decent. More on the damage side of it, not overly the tanking side, but still does force the target to attack you, so you can actually run with Valorious Strike or Shielding Strike as your alternative, and still cause the target to attack you. This is, again, mainly DPS though. And it only works on single target attacks. Smite. Smash a target, igniting them with holy fire for 15 seconds. They burn so hot that enemies within 15 of them are also damaged by this effect. From Oath of Protection, foes who are affected by the burn deal 15% less damage for 3 seconds. Decent ability, but again, this is mainly a DPS build, even with the reduce of the damage. Sacred Weapon and Smite work really well together for DPS. Bane. This one is a big one. You place a holy mark on a target. This target deals 10% less damage and takes 10% more damage for 10 seconds. This effect can be stacked up to 3 times. You have 3 charges of it. And if you take in Devotion, you can actually apply this to an ally to bless them instead, increasing their damage dealt and reducing the damage taken for 10 seconds. Increase in rank increases the duration for a total of 16 seconds. This is huge. This is a big one. Any boss fight you do, Bane should be slotted, and you should always have 3 stacks on him. Now, a lot of people tell paladins to switch over to the devotion build before going into a boss, just so they can bless the one player. It's not that beneficial, really. It's more beneficial to put it on a enemy than it is to put it on an ally if you are running devotion, because this causes them to deal 10% less damage and take 10% more damage from everyone. Stacks up 3 times, so that's actually 30%, as opposed to that one person being able to deal 30% more damage while taking 30% less damage. It's literally the exact same thing, but this is being only to one individual while this is assisting the entire party. I never understood why people would want that, to go devotion just so you could do this to one person. It's more beneficial to do this one. If you are running in a group with one that is devotion and one that is protection, make sure the protection pally is putting it on the target, and then your devotion can put it on the damage dealer of your party. But it just does not make any sense, and I see it all the time in chat, and it just boggles the mind. This is more beneficial overall for the entire party than this. Templar's Wrath. This will never leave your bar. You will always have this slotted. Well, again, it's strongly encouraged that you have this slotted. The choice is completely up to you, but this is where you get your temporary hit points, where you're able to stay in that fight and just tank non-stop. So, Templar's Wrath. You unleash a storm of holy energy, dealing heavy damage to all nearby foes and stunning them. As Oath of Protection, you gain HP equal to 300% of the damage dealt. And increase in ranks just increases the damage that you do. Now, this works not just on enemies, but on allies as well. So you can actually trigger this to give yourself temporary HP just from your allies standing around you. And it will take the maximum amount of 5 for the damage. So if you have your 4 allies, their companions, and then say 7 enemies around you, and you drop this, it will take the 5 highest to determine your total HP. So it'll take the 5 top damages that you did, times that by 300%, and then give you that in temporary hit points. It is huge. Your bar will be yellow for days. So that's why I strongly recommend that this never leaves your slotted taskbar. Oh, also, this also stuns foes nearby, controlling them temporarily. It's quite nice. Binding Oath. This one is also a very important power. I pretty much always have this slotted. So, for 5 seconds, nearby enemies are forced to attack you, and you gain 100% of your maximum hit points as a shield. When this effect expires, the shield is depleted. When this effect expires or the shield is depleted, foes within 30 of the area take 100% of the damage that was taken by the shield, and you take 50% of that damage. Shield duration is increased by up to 3 seconds, so for a total of 8. So what that does is it gives you a blue bar, so whatever your HP is, so let's say you had 300,000 HP. You would gain a blue shield of 300,000 HP. As enemies hit you, that blue bar would deplete slowly. Now, if it completely depleted, and by taking that 300,000 in damage, it would explode, and all enemies around you would take 300,000 in damage, and you will take half of that. So you would take 150,000 in damage. And again, with the damage reduction stuff, you'll take even less. But the big part is that you're forcing them to attack you. You can run straight into a group, drop that, and every enemy around you will be forced to attack you for that duration. Very nice one, great for keeping aggro. Cleansing Touch. You heal target ally and remove any CC effects from them. You may activate this power while controlled. If you have any enemy target while casting this power, you instead heal and cleanse all allies in melee range. Oath of Protection, gain temporary hit points equal 300 of the healing done. This is more of a DC thing, so we never have this slotted. So we can pretty much just omit this, but if for some reason you'd like to use it, feel free. I mean, it does gain temporary hit points based on the amount of healing done, but again, you are the tank, not really the healer. But it is an option available to you. Banishment. You banish all targets in an AoE for 20 seconds. These foes are stunned and become invulnerable until the stun ends. This stun lasts for 4 seconds on players. Oath of Protection. Foes are taunted for 6 seconds after the banishment ends, and higher rank just reduces the cooldown by 9 seconds, so 11 seconds. Don't use this, ever, please. For the love of God, don't use this. Nothing's worse than people running in, start popping their dailies and their mount powers and their encounters and stuff, and then all the enemies just disappear because you banished them. Don't use this, please. Divine Touch. Deal heavy radiant damage to all foes in an area around the target. Reduced incoming damage for 8 seconds. This one's decent for that reduced incoming damage for 8 seconds, but again, you're already capped at 80%, and it's deal heavy radiant damage to all foes in an area around the target, so you're not doing heavy radiant damage to the target, so not overly the best power. Vow. You vow to defeat your target, increase the damage you deal to the target by 20%. Allies who strike your vow target build threat for the paladin. Higher ranks will simply increase the damage that you'll deal. So you'll deal 50% more damage to the target. This is really good for DPS, but it is really good for being in a tank build against the boss, because when allies are striking your target, it builds threat for you, so causes them to want to attack you instead of them. Quite useful. Absolution. You place a shield on yourself or target ally for 20% of the target's maximum hit points. The shield persists until it breaks. Oath Protection. Allies under this effect of the shield gain 50% damage resistance. And then higher ranks just increases the shield by an extra 30%. For a total of 50% of the target's maximum hit points. This is actually a decent one, because you can actually put this on your companions and any ally, and it will stay. There's no time limit on it. It will stay until it is depleted. So if you're about to go into a boss dungeon, you can take the 20-30 seconds it's going to take to put a shield on each of your allies, so they all have this shield protecting them, and it will last until it is completely depleted. You can throw this on and run around for 4 hours, and until you take that damage to deplete that shield, it will stay. It's actually a really, really good power. Relentless Avenger. You rush to the target, dealing damage, driving all other foes within 15 of the target. Sorry, driving back all other foes within 15 of the target. Protection. All targets are taunted. This is a decent power, with the exception of the whole knocking the enemies back from the one that you hit. It does force a taunt, making them attack you. But again, you're knocking enemies away from you, which is not what you want. You want to keep them with you, but still solid power if you used appropriately. Circle of Power, also known as COP. You generate a zone of control 30 wide. This zone improves all damage you deal by 30% and lasts for 10 seconds. The real reason we like this is Oath of Protection. You and allies within the circle of power also gain 25% damage resistance. We're not too worried about it for ourselves, but for our allies, that's huge. If you drop this and you lose aggro of 1 or 2 enemies, you don't really need to worry too much if they get a hit or 2 in on an ally. You got enough damage resistance for your allies, it's quite beneficial. Especially on the last boss of Castle Ravenloft, when you're fighting Count Chocula. He is a dick, and he does a lot of damage, and there's a lot of things causing a lot of damage in there. I always run with Circle of Power in there. I drop that down, I hold up my shield, I'm popping my dailies, I'm popping my artifact, I'm doing it all trying to keep my team alive, because there's so much damage happening in that room against us that it is ridiculous. So this is a solid power, a super solid power. So that covers over powers. So that was my my build for my tank from Oathbound Paladin Protection. I hope this build has been beneficial. Again, sorry for the long video, but again, I will be including timestamps at the bottom in the description of the video. If this video has helped you, please leave a like. And if anything was unclear, or if you have additional questions, or I forgot to mention something, throw it down in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer you as soon as possible. Again, if this is not a 100% need to build like this, this is just a template. Choice is yours. Figure out what works for you. Play around. Almost every weekend, I'll hop over to the preview server. I'll try out new things. I'll run with it for a few days or a week just to see how it works out. Sometimes it works out really well. Sometimes it is terrible. But it's all hit and miss, and you won't know until you try. So I wish you all the best. Again, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, queries, throw them down in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And again, if this video has helped you, please leave a like.